Today we'll be talking about Phrygian Flat 4, which is the third mode of the Harmonic Major Scale. More on that scale in a later video. For now, let's concentrate on Phrygian Flat 4. We're going to approach the scale from a compositional point of view, as in not to improvise solos with or to learn scales on the guitar, but to compose an accessible pop song with, as in the song will be in exclusively Phrygian Flat 4, the melody, and all the triads will be built with notes in that scale, in that mode. So Phrygian Flat 4 is the answer to the question, what if we tried to make Phrygian a little bit darker, but sort of failed? And then not completely, but mostly. Let me explain. To construct the Phrygian Flat 4 scale starting from the minor scale, will be in E today, you start by flattening the 2, which gets us to E minor Phrygian. And then, you guessed it, you flatten the 4, which gets us to Phrygian Flat 4. I mean, I guess that the Greeks came up with 7 cool names for the 7 modes of the major scale, like 2,000 years ago, and since then musicians and music theoreticians sort of lazed out and didn't really come up with any new cool names. But whatever lack of imagination the name has, it's useful. So why did I say that this fails to make Phrygian Flat 4 darker than Phrygian? You're going to tell me, well, that major 2 chord from Phrygian becomes a minor 2. I mean, that's a bit gloomier when you like combine it with minor 1 tonic. Leave now, leave, we can talk. This becomes a lot darker when you take that flat 2 minor chord. Leave now, so you can talk. And you're going to tell me that that flat 7 minor chord becoming a flat 7 diminished chord is also a bit edgier and darker. And that minor 4 becomes an augmented 4 or a diminished 4. I mean, all those things are darker and edgier. But there's one small detail that we might overlook, even though it's staring us right in the face. What is a flat 4? Isn't a flat 4 the exact same interval as a major 3rd? Indeed.
Fascinating.
This is where flattening that 4 fails into making that mode super dark. We get access to a major 1 tonic chord. Boom. I mean, even if on paper, theoretically, the tonic chord is E minor, if you suspend that E minor as an E sus flat 4 in our scale, it just becomes E major. It's just a fancy way of saying E major. So we get access to that E major within that scale, and that's huge in terms of color and brightness. I mean, it's like I'm going to make my house super dark by boarding up the windows, but I put a skylight on the roof, letting all the sun in. I said, yeah, the windows are going to be a bit weird and darker, but the sun is going to blast in my face from the skylight. Here's a joke generated by ChatGPT about Phrygian Flat 4. What did Phrygian Flat 4 say when it got lost? I flat forgot where I was. It's so stupid, but sort of apt, as in you can sort of forget that you're in an E minor Phrygian Flat 4 mode and just blast an E major chord and you sort of forget where you were. You could just sort of hang out on that E major and be happy. So the scale becomes sort of a balance between good and evil. I mean, Phrygian is decidedly one of the darkest minor modes, and Phrygian Flat 4 is its slightly edgier but overall nicer cousin with a heart of gold. That fat E major chord hiding in plain sight. I mean, I'm getting a bit lost in metaphors here, so here's what the scale sounds like. So you get that Phrygianness here. You get that little bit of harmonicness from the harmonic major there. And offers some really interesting colors. So let's get back to business. Let's rewind back to E minor Aeolian, as in plain old vanilla E minor. Here's what the song sounds like in E minor Aeolian.
Let go of all of your fear. It's time to find your way out. It's near. I can't believe I let go. I'm sinking under the weight of time. Lose yourself in my embrace. Leave this place without a trace. And I feel you, I found you, I hear you, I need you.
As you might have noticed, the second part of the song is still in E minor, but the tonic has changed to the relative mode of C Lydian, because that second part resolves in C. Now let's take a first step into darkness. Let's flatten that too. We're now in E Phrygian. Notice that the second chord, instead of being D major in first inversion, is going to be F major, as in the flat 2 major chord. That third chord in the progression now becomes D minor instead of D major, because that 2 got flat. And notice that the pivot chord of G, which leads us into the part in C, stays the same. We get access to that nice major 3 chord. And that part in C now has moved to C Ionian, as in plain old vanilla C, and the vamp, instead of being C and D major, which is a Lydian vamp essentially, becomes C and F major. Which is a decidedly very Ionian vamp. Now, here's the song in Phrygian.
Let go of all of your fear. It's time to find your way out. It's near. I can't believe I let go. I'm sinking under the weight of time. Lose yourself in my embrace. Leave this place without a trace. Now I found you, I hear you, I need you.
Now let's take our final step into strangeness. Let's flatten that 4 and see what happens. We're now in E Phrygian Flat 4. That second chord in our song becomes from F major to F minor. Ooh. And that third chord goes from D minor to D diminished, or half diminished, because I'm including the 7. I mean, in Phrygian you would have which becomes in Phrygian Flat 4 which is decidedly darker and edgier. But let's throw a wrench in the equation. Instead of resolving back to E minor at the end of the riff, let's resolve back to E major. Why not? Let's throw a bit of sunshine into that bit. And notice that the G major chord that acts as a pivot to move us into C stays intact. We still get access to that nice fat major 3 chord, or flat 3 major chord. Good on you, G. You're such a good boy, G. And now, the relative mode in C that we fall into is C harmonic major, which is the major scale with a flat 6. We'll get into more details in the next video. But for now, notice that the vamp, instead of being C and F, becomes C and F minor. And even though the melody hits that flat 6 only a couple times, just having that F minor being there really adds an element of wistfulness and poignancy to that bit.
Let go all of your fear. It's time to find your way out. It's near. I can't believe I let go. I'm sinking under the weight of lose yourself in my embrace. Leave this place without a trace. And I
Although all 3 examples sounded pretty good, I must admit to preferring the Phrygian Flat 4. It's a lot more colorful and emotional in a lot of really interesting ways that wouldn't be really accessible if we stayed within the confines of the modes of the major scale. It offers a pretty bold emotional palette and flexibility with that major chord on the tonic. So I invite you to try stuff with Phrygian Flat 4 or any modes of the harmonic major, which is a really cool and often ignored scale. It has some really interesting modes, and even the main mode of harmonic major is really interesting. And I'm going to go into deeper details on harmonic major in the next video, in which I will continue the same song with a third and final bit in pure harmonic major. Join me next time. See you then.